Okay, welcome everyone to our council meeting on Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. And everyone is in attendance. Okay, Councilor Wright's out tonight. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered today on the ancestral unceded territory of the Passamaquoddy peoples. And next up, need a mover and seconder to approve the agenda with an addition under new business, adding H and I. H would be the Charlotte County Museum. Councilor Hyslop will speak to that. And I will be the St. Stephen Cemetery request, and Councilor Harding will speak to that. So can I have a mover and seconder to the agenda for the regular council meeting of May 24th, 2023 be approved? Oh, and I got two other additions. Okay, sorry. These were additions as well. With the following additions that you'd see before you on the package there: the request for decision for Union Street, combined sewer and separation, water main renewal phase 2, and request for decision for School Street, combined sewer separation and utility renewal. So, first of all, I got a mover and a seconder? Councilor Harding? Councilor Hyslop. I already read the motion with the two additions and the other two additions, so 4 total. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. Any conflicts of interest this evening? Seeing none. Okay. Next up. Public hearing of objections, bylaw. Okay, hold on. I need to get myself a little better prepared here. My apologies, there we go. Okay. Got a mover and seconder for a public hearing objections bylaw M-2-04 and Z-3-01. Seconder, Councilor Harding, or Councilor Hyslop, Councilor Harding. So that bylaw is to amend the bylaw number M-2 being a municipal plan for bylaw for the town of St. Stephen, be enacted by Council of the Municipal District of St. Stephen as follows. Bylaw number M-2, the municipal plan of the bylaw of the town of St. Stephen, is amended by changing the designation of the as shown on the generalized future land use map attached. The said bylaw as Schedule A thereof for the land shown on Schedule 1 attached hereto, and forming part hereof from industrial designation to commercial designation. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. If it pleases council, our friend from the RSC might be able to give a quick summary of those bylaws in layman's terms to allow the public to refresh their minds from last meeting of what we're discussing, and then if there are any people in the gallery that wish to speak for or against the proposals, they'll have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Yeah. Jeff, is there a way to project my slides to the screen? All right, thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, everyone. I'll just give a quick summary of what's being discussed here. So essentially, We're looking at two bylaw amendments. One is bylaw number M-2-04 to amend the municipal plan M2, and the other one is a bylaw Z-3-01 to amend the zoning bylaw Z3. Both amendments are dealing with the same rezoning application, and that's why we are dealing with them as a package. And council has already heard this presentation last time, so this presentation is more for the benefit of the public to understand what's going on. All right, so the subject properties are 8 and 14 Union Street, which is located at the corner of Union Street and King Street. 8 Union Street is the church, and 14 Union Street is a parking lot. The two properties are currently zoned R2B, which is a residential zone, and the proposal is to rezone those two properties to neighborhood commercial, which is a commercial zone. And the intent of the rezoning is to have this antique store there permanently and legally. As we all know, the store is already there because they got a 1-year temporary use authorization from the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee. And it's just a 1-year temporary authorization. So to have the store there permanently and legally, they have to go through rezoning. And that's why they want to rezone the property from R2B to neighborhood commercial, which is a more proper, appropriate zone for the antique store. And just a little bit of a background information, in the town of, well, not sorry, town, municipal district of St. Stephen, there are 2 layers of zoning. The higher layer is the municipal plan, which has a generalized future land use map, and the bottom layer, the lower layer, is the zoning bylaw, which has the zoning map. So when we consider rezoning, we gotta make sure the 2 bylaws are consistent. And for this particular rezoning, we have to make sure, like I said, we have to make sure the 2 layers of zoning are consistent. So we have to amend the municipal plan first to make sure that the land use designation is changed to commercial, and then we can change the zoning from R2B to neighborhood commercial. And that's why we have 2 amendments for this rezoning. And this is just a quick summary. So the proposed bylaw M-2-04 is to change the land use designation to commercial. And then the proposed amendment Z-03-01 is to change the zoning of the 2 properties from R2B to NC, which is neighborhood commercial. And as requested under the municipal plan, when we rezone a property to neighborhood commercial, council has to apply conditions just to make sure that it's compatible within the surrounding residential neighborhoods. So those 4 are the recommended conditions from staff for council's consideration. The first condition is landscaping, so some buffering to make sure the new commercial use won't significantly impact the surrounding residential use. The second condition is a limit on the general gross floor area of this new commercial use. Again, just want to make sure it doesn't turn into a significant commercial use in a residential neighborhood. And the third recommended condition is regarding outdoor display, to make sure that it doesn't obstruct pedestrian or vehicular traffic. Again, just to make sure it doesn't impact surrounding. And the last condition is to make sure that this use does not become a public nuisance, so that it doesn't generate off-site electrical interference, dust, noise, odor, or smoke. So again, this is for the benefit of the neighborhood and to make sure the rezoning is compatible. And for this rezoning, council has already conducted a public presentation back in March, did first reading, and PRAC has also given its view on this rezoning as well. PRAC has no issue on this rezoning. And then in April, council set a date for a public hearing, which is what we are doing right now. And now in May, we will have public hearing from the public. We'll have public hearing of objections from the public. And then council will do a second and third reading and then consider conditions for this rezoning as well. All right, that's the end of my presentation.
Any questions, council? Any questions from the audience regarding the rezoning? Okay. Just for clarification, Jeff, that's be the first reading.
No, we've already done the first.
So we're done discussing. There's no.
We're on your agenda for second and third reading.
So that, I'll just wait and we'll do the voting here on the next ones, right? Or do I gotta vote this one in too? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So next up, I need a mover and seconder for the approval of the regular council meeting, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on April 26, 2023 be approved as presented. Councilor Eastman. Deputy Mayor Wheaton. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, got a public delegation from Security Consulting Services, Mark Driscoll, Frontline Security Solutions. Let's start with the mover and seconder to start this off. Councilor Rodas? Councilor Greenlaw? Okay, thank you. Yeah, come on up, Mark. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. For those that know me, that's a sincere thank you for having me.
I know the old little you, I was grown up person.
Well, I was about the same height when you saw me.
Yeah,
Well, there's one for Chad, too.
I never kicked you out of the pool.
No, actually, Alan taught me to swim, believe it or not. That's how long we go back. He was the captain of the lifeguards in those days. As I recall, I went to the bottom and waited for Tanya Doughton to jump in and bring me back out again.
Yeah. Then you got me.
And I did, yes. What a surprise. I came immediately to consciousness. My name is Mark Driscoll, and I was born and raised here, as that little anecdotal story demonstrated. I have a security consulting company now, and I passed around just sort of what I'm going to go through today. I believe everyone received an email for the original proposal with just some ideas that I had. And Jeff got right back to me and squared me away a little bit on what the proposal should actually look like, and I appreciate that, Jeff. I'm just going to go through a quick background so everybody knows where I'm speaking from. I have 23 years experience in this. I conducted drug interdiction operations in Central America as a member of the U.S. military. I trained as a nuclear response team officer at Point Lepreau. I designed and developed the Point Lepreau Nuclear Security Officer Training Program, fully compliant to regulations set by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. I am a recognized subject matter expert and trainer in nuclear security operations, alarm monitoring, and response capabilities. I designed and developed regulatory compliant nuclear security operating procedures. I was security project leader for all search, surveillance, intrusion detection system, and alarm response upgrade projects for Lepreau while I was there. I consulted on security capabilities for integration into PLNGS emergency preparedness strategies. I now own and manage a security risk management company that provides security consulting services in nuclear, industrial, and corporate markets, and I'm currently contracted to design area security programs for small modular nuclear reactor companies here in Canada and soon in the United States as well. So based on the proposal that I sent you before, without reading line for line what you've got in front of you, essentially this is just something for you to be able to take home and look at and digest, and if you want to reach out at a later date for questions, or I can field questions today, I'm happy to. We're all in the same boat. For me, this is sort of personal. I grew up here, this is my community, and I have a vested interest in its safety and security. So what I am essentially proposing is a means for council and community leadership to start protecting our own, for lack of a better term. I have been in contact with the Regional Service Commission. I've been in contact with representatives at the provincial government, with public safety, and, well, to even say to get them to recognize that there's a problem is difficult. And if they won't recognize that there's a problem, they're certainly not going to suggest solutions. So it's sort of unfair that all these issues of high crime, and I could list them all, but I won't, because everybody in this room, I'm sure, has had an experience or knows 12 people that have had experiences already. So I'm not going to waste anybody's time. What I propose for council to be able to do is to design a program that's catered for our area that can act as a supplemental option to the existing law enforcement that we have now. Now, look, I'll tell you straight up that most of my inner circle at my age are lucky to have 5 good friends. 3 of those 5 are RCMP officers. So if I throw names out like, well, when I was a kid, Gene Hoffman. Gene Hoffman was a mountain, and he was respected by everybody in the community, even those he was there to, put in jail. But we recognized his position, we recognized the authority, and we respected it. John Nagy, for those that know him, same thing. Dave Penny, for those that know him. Dave Hansen. Today we've got Jeff Davidson, Chris Henderson, Dan Hine. We have the same intention. Look, everybody joins the RCMP, everybody joins the military, everybody does these civic duties because they want to be, a force for good, whether it's in their community or their country or their province, whatever the case may be. None of them signed up to do nothing. So we're seeing now that the systems themselves are stressing. Now, whether that's because of COVID or maybe there's not good succession planning, or whatever the cause, we're dealing with the result at our level. Now we've been amalgamated, and there's some great reasons, and I'm sure some people are happy about it, and then there are some terrible reasons that people are upset about, and I get that. But what has unintentionally happened is we now have another layer of bureaucracy between municipal need and provincial resources. We're expected now as a community to go through the RSC, the Regional Service Commission, for support, for resources, but I don't know if anyone's reached out to them yet. There isn't a whole lot planned as of now. I think they met last November, and they may meet this summer or they may not. At any rate, they don't currently have answers, and they're not voluntarily reaching out to say, we have this under control, we're working with whatever. Again, it all points to council. It all points to community leadership. We see it here today. We see it in St. George. We see it in St. Andrews, just about every rural community. The cities have a better handle on the alarming rise in crime because they have much larger law enforcement capability there than we do. So to get back to the RCMP expectation, I know it's not an issue with the individual members. Every one of them are every bit what I remember when I was a kid. When they see us, they wave, they smile. Some they don't, and that's fine because a lot of them aren't from here, which again is a big shift from the community policing strategy of yesteryear, where it was people from our community that knew our areas, they knew our communities, they knew our needs. And if you had a problem, I don't want to be the old guy in the room that says, back in my day, because that's why Mr. Jodry's here. No, sorry. But I will say, at the very least, if someone stole your car back then, you only waited 2 days, and the person that stole it either returned it with a full tank of gas, or you knew where they were and you could go get it. And those days aren't here anymore. We have a real crisis in every direction, it seems, from theft and vandalism to drugs and addiction and mental health. Honestly, what I am proposing is giving you a dedicated resource that, this is quite literally what I do for a living. I do it on a different scale, but the contacts are the same, the resources are the same, most of the solutions are the same, except instead of dealing with bureaucrats to set up a process, we're now doing it as a community. I have detailed a few generic suggestions. In fact, the BIA, the chamber right now, reached out at the last minute, and I've helped them bring a proposal home for a government grant to supplement some security in the downtown area. And it's that process that I want to make available to you, because believe it or not, you know, we're looking at it at such a, or we're being exposed to it at such a macro level right now, because it came in like a torrent. You know, all of a sudden there was one report of something going missing or someone breaking in, and then there were 10, and then there were 20, and then houses were burning down. It sort of came at everybody all at once, and we just don't have the processes in place to be able to deal with something at that level. So what I'm proposing, or part of what I'm proposing, is giving you the tools to be able to process and create process from analysis through evaluation, which means that, and I know everybody in this room has 3 ideas already of, you know what, I think maybe if we did this, or maybe if we did that. And you know what, you're probably right. The difference is I know how to take that concept and turn it into an actual, tangible, actionable solution. I know the resources to call. I know how to organize. I know how to manage. And that's part of what I'm proposing as well, is not just giving you a resource to identify the problems, identify some solutions, but I'm well-versed in navigating the laws in this area as well to create clear authorities under which you can operate. And I'm sure you have lawyers that are infinitely smarter than me. In fact, 90% of the room is smarter than me, with the exception of, I won't call. Anyway, it's, you know, the processes are daunting, but they're doable. And this is all just process. And we see already that council is dedicated to solving some or all of these problems. You just need the tools to be able to do it. I live here. This is my community, and people call me every day. You know, I'm not selling a product. I don't have any one product that I would say this, you know, this is the one I recommend. Everything goes through analysis. Everything goes through recommendations. I will say that I have already benchmarked most of the police agencies in the country for their best practices, for their operating experiences, for their fail points. And I've done as much for about a dozen communities around the country that have already implemented some support services like this, whether it's CCTV and video management, or it's CCTV and a DVR, or it's supplemental security forces, or it's neighborhood watch, or it's vehicle patrols or foot patrols, whatever the case may be. Without a good, clear program to design it, if you want to design it, and then manage and implement it so that whatever solution you choose is operating under the very, very clear expectation and legal authority of council. These are your tools. You know, right now, we don't have the ability to say, if we take something, I know everybody probably has a, you know, a camera at their house or something, and then we catch someone breaking in, and it's a, you know, all you see is a vague outline at night, or whatever the case. When you take it to the RCMP, it's not actionable. You know, maybe the resolution's bad, or maybe it hasn't met the minimum requirement for lighting, you know, to be admissible and then prosecutable. That's basically where it stops for us right now. But with the right tools, you know, actual professional equipment, we not only have a means to collect, you know, we catch them in the act, but we have a means of holding the systems that we're held by accountable. So if there are 2,000 incidents involving the RCMP, how many of those incidents were actionable for them? How many did they respond to? What was the response time on it? What was the follow-up on it? And this is why I led with talking about all the good officers that we're lucky enough to have in our area. Because this isn't a problem of officers. This is a problem of staffing and personnel and resources, which is fine. Every industry right now is going through the same issues. The difference is we're the client. For all intents and purposes, we have signed a contract for services, and we just want the minimum requirement for safety and security within our communities, which is not a big ask. So if it is manpower and staffing and personnel and vacations and leaves, that's fine, but it's not our problem. We've paid for services, we expect those services, and if they can't provide them, it's up to them to backfill. So with some of these tools that we'll have at our disposal, we can hold them accountable, essentially. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean it the same as any business would hold any of their service providers accountable. You know, however I feel about them personally, which is a pro, and they're in the pro column. I like what they do. I like what they stand for. I'm proud to have them in my country and my community. What they need is help. And we can't change the top of the RCMP. All we can do is provide resources until they get squared away, because I'm sure they recognize the problem. They especially recognize the problem locally. So until they can get squared away, we need the tools as a community to be able to mitigate some of those risks ourselves. Now, yeah, you know what? It sucks. It's going to cost money, and it's going to take time, and very clear processes and procedures need to be created, but you're at an advantage that a lot of other communities aren't. And it's that you happen to have someone who has 23 years experience doing this at your disposal. So even if you're not looking for something, if you're not looking for a full program, and I have laid out in detail what I can provide, even if you just want help creating or renegotiating or updating the existing MOU, I have experience with that. If you want someone who knows the questions to ask and the kind of answers that should be expected when you sit down with RCMP or public safety and ask these questions, that's what I'm here for. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a bulldog, and I'm very good at what I do. And I'm literally here saying that I am a resource for you. I know there's talk of physical security programs, and that's great. If that's an option that you want to go with, you know, I reached out to Al last year, maybe a little before that, to say, you know, these are some things available. Well, I have looked long and hard at it, and that it is a viable option for you if that's what the direction you want to go. But it comes with the caveat that you need to sit down with someone like me and set very clear expectations so that whoever comes through, and this is sort of where I'm at now, is if you want a physical security program, I can create one, or what I'm proposing is you allow me to vet. So you bring problems, I track them. I then present solutions, and then we go through a process like anything else. You know, service providers or product providers come forward, and I sit down with you so that this is your program. I'm not making any decisions. All I'm doing is providing you with the information on each topic so that you can make informed decisions. So you can say, yes, this works because, oh, look here, we've already seen it work in 6 other communities, and here's the evidence. Or, you know what, that's not such a good idea because we also have the weak points and the fail points from the other benchmarked places that I did, and it didn't work so well there. So this really is what I'm providing to you, is an opportunity to at least know what your options are. So now when people come to council or they meet you on the street or the grocery store, you can say, we've got a plan. We have a plan in place. We're going to create a process. Whatever the case may be, you're moving forward. Because the worst thing you can do is nothing. Whether you make a good decision or a bad decision, for those that have ever served, you'll follow someone that makes a decision just to not stand still. So I'm providing you with an opportunity to make a decision. And in this case, I'm giving you resources and tools so you can make good decisions, informed decisions. I really don't want to go through this. I kept looking at it like, do I want to go through this line by line? And the answer is no. You have my email with my original proposal. I'm happy to talk about that. You know, I have this as homework if you want to do it. And I just want to say that I am available. So my nuclear contracts pay the bills with me, but I live in this community, and my neighbors call me every day. You know, my wife, who is my conscience and has become my conscience in this, because, you know, when you're only looking at vulnerability assessments and threat and risk assessments from around the area, the country, and the world all the time, you tend to get a bit jaded. But luckily, my wife is the lion's share of our relationship. I'm a small 25%. I bring the groceries in and get stuff off the middle shelf. You know, she calls me every day to say, you need to go to our neighbors. I'm not that tall. The top shelf is still just an absolute mystery to me in our house, 17 years. You know, our neighbors need help, and I go over and I do what I can. And if that means I have to unload every camera that I have in the house, then they get it. I really am committed to make a difference in my own community. And I hope that you take advantage of it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mark. Well done, sir.
Is there any questions from anybody?
Yes, Councilor Rodas.
Let me just get a bottle of water.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but I'll start with the first one. I think the thing I'm most curious about is, in your experience in other communities that you've worked with, do you actually feel that the RCMP is supportive of the collaboration?
Well, that's a good question, and
I only say that because I have spoken to some different community members, and I think some concern, I've heard from some people that they worry that the time will be spent criminalizing homelessness. Like, the time will be spent kind of monitoring homelessness, when really what people seem to want is, if somebody's in their yard disrupting, you know, their family time or on their private property, for just someone to show up and be present and be there. And that's not what they can access right now at this time with the RCMP. It's like a 2 to 3 hour response time, and at that time. So that is my question is, you know, have you seen collaboration?
so I understand exactly where you're coming from. And, you know, the reality is, as community leaders, you're not just responsible for those of us that are law-abiding, tax-paying, you know, honest citizens. You know, your responsibility is also to those of us who have strayed from the path, for lack of a better term. So I think, to answer the first part of your question before I get to the actual question of will RCMP support this, these tools that I'm giving you, well, for example, CCTV, and this is this much. CCTV cameras with video analytics today, number one, they don't break the bank. This isn't a government facility. You don't pay government prices. They come with almost innate video analytics today. You don't want to become a police state, number one. You don't want facial recognition software and alarms going off every time, you know. But it is a way to track the number of people coming back to the same place, which, again, becomes actionable for the RCMP because it's a repeat offender. It also is able to track the response time of an RCMP officer, or if they show up at all, because we have that on video, so we can use that. Now, with this, it's not just RCMP. We have lots of resources, public and private, including grants that are designed for instances just like this that we can access. It's not just an RCMP issue. We need pressure on public health. We need pressure on mental health. This is how we get it. Opening and maintaining those lines of communication, knowing the questions to ask, is every bit as important as who to ask. So part of this is me helping you create that. Create those lines of communication with all the external support resources, whether they be government or private. And I do know some private as well. People that have a vested interest in their own communities that are willing to act as a stakeholder when we need it. And those support services are every bit as important. And if the RCMP are saying, let me give you a quick example. Okay, there's a mental health crisis or case on someone's lawn. The RCMP have come, they've responded in the past, and what happened was they had to wait for a second officer before they could show up, but a second officer doesn't come. Actually, here in St. Stephen, you're very lucky because you have a large detachment with a lot of officers. In some of our other areas, like St. Andrews and St. George, they don't have that benefit. And a lot of times after a certain time of night, they can't leave at all because their support comes from St. Stephen, and it's usually a long time coming if it comes at all. So, okay, let's say the RCMP officer finally gets support from another officer, because you don't want them going to these calls by themselves either. We don't want to put them in a position to where they're going to get injured or hurt. Now, there are some that say, well, that's what you signed up for. Well, I disagree. You signed up to help your community. You didn't sign up to agree to get the crap kicked out of you on somebody's front lawn. So 2 officers now show up. You know, they effect an arrest or detain them. They take them up to the city for an assessment. They get there, they unload them, they take to the hospital. They wait 4.5, 5 hours. The doctor comes out and says, there's nothing you can do. This is a mental health issue. Take them back. Well, guess where they come? Right back and drop them off. So creating those resources or having those resources, when RCMP says, well, you know what, there's nothing we can do. Why are we wasting resources collecting up mental health cases and taking them to the city, taking 2 officers out of the rotation, off the streets so that they're not patrolling, they're not, doing those frontline police duties that we come to expect. Why would I waste my time? So now we would have an answer. Well, as it turns out, we've reached out to mental health, public safety. We now have a clear chain, we have a process, we have direction, and that's where it starts. I'm not saying that these solutions are going to show up overnight, because they're not. You're going to have to see my face every day. But behind the scenes, you have a dedicated resource. Everybody here has a job, mostly. You have kids, you have responsibilities. So to have a dedicated resource that can not just establish, pick a direction, lay out your options, then open lines of communication and maintain them. I promise the answer won't be as long as this one, Alan.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Rodas.
So I do want to note, I've had conversations with mental health, and really good conversations actually, where they've indicated, we hear that you're advocating for mobile mental health, but we do have that. Like from 8:30 to 4:30 every day, they can leave that office and go anywhere in community with somebody with a mental health crisis. However, mental health is a voluntary service, and if somebody is not agreeable to go, or they're in a specific state where they are violent, one mental health worker cannot do anything about that situation, nor can the RCMP. So therefore, my biggest question for you is, what can you do about that? Because that's where we're at. That's the challenge that we're facing here, is crime that's petty crime that the RCMP are saying we can't do anything about that. Mobile mental health saying we can't do anything about that. I think for us counselors, we want to know, what would the response be and how would it change? Or are we putting money into something where you're also just not able to achieve your goals based on the systemic issues at hand?
They're not my goals. They're going to be your goals. And that's what we're going to lay out, is what are your clear expectations out of this. I can provide you with direction and instruction and guidance and how to proceduralize this and how to, how to open up and maintain those lines of communication. But the other side of this is there is still a responsibility to do something, and I hear you loud and clear. Because when the public, the whole reason why any of this works is because we have this whole sort of social agreement that when there's an issue, we call the applicable authorities and they respond and they take care of the issues, and that means that we as honest, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens don't have to take care of it ourselves. When there is a breakdown in that, then out of desperation, the public feels like they have to respond themselves, and then you're getting a response from the RCMP. It's a much different response, and we're turning good, honest, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens into criminals because they feel they have to defend their own, what yesterday would have been. I talked to someone today that said that, like me, they grew up across this entire town. There wasn't an area of town, inside or out, that they weren't on their bicycle. And we were, we were the Gen Xers. We were the feral children. And they wouldn't, the point that he made to me was that there's no way he would let his children ride their bikes around where we used to go unattended. Because not even just for fear of what would happen, but for fear of what he would do as a result. And again, it just comes down to a breakdown in the system. I can't give you specifics here tonight, and I won't. I can give you a follow-up where I will answer every question that you want answered, but it has to be in a little easier setting than this. I'm barely tall enough to see over the podium as it is, and I can't stand on my tiptoes any longer.
Okay, any further questions, council?
Yeah, Council Rodas here. I think there's a choke point in every kind of strategy or interaction, right? And I just wondered, it's going to take a lot of thought, I think, by everybody in council, and probably a lot more consultation, just to see what we're going to get. Absolutely. What recommendations, because there's always those choke points. I mean, you can only do so much, and we try to do so much, and we seem to hit roadblocks. I'm just wondering how that we invest money into something, how are we going to get through those choke points and not get caught up in this as far as we go. We've tried this 100 times before, and there's no results.
And the taxpayers.
And the taxpayers are, they're the ones that are
Well, the benefit
paying.
of a process is you're not going to do it more than once. So if you've done it 100 times before, there's nothing I can do about that, but I promise you I won't recommend you do it again. Everybody,
Well, that's in the, having to do something, right? We have to do something, and, we've tried to do something over and over again, not necessarily in different venues, but different ways, and it just seems to come to an end, right? It just.
well, again, I understand the pressures that you're under, because I'm under the same pressures. And as a taxpayer, I've had my place attempt to be broken into. And, I got very similar response. There are a number of strategies, and there are other communities that have implemented them already with varying degrees of success. This isn't magic, and I can't snap my fingers and say this is absolutely going to work. But what I give you is a process. And the process, it's in your homework, will show you from analysis through implementation. Just for an example, okay, let's say we establish that the downtown area is getting broken into constantly at, in between 2200 and 0300 every day. 10 o'clock at night and 3 o'clock in the morning every day. So, okay, well, let's try to put some cameras up there. The cameras gather the evidential data for the RCMP to make it actionable, whereas before, there's a certain bar that has to be met in order for something to be prosecutable. The other issue is whether or not the Crown will prosecute. Now, those aren't answers that I can give you. The solutions that I'll give you, it's not magic and it's not close, but it is proprietary. So I'm not going to give them to you standing here. If you're interested and you want to hear it again, call me. I'm not going to charge you. We'll sit down in an easier setting, and you can ask me as many questions as you want, and I'll give you honest answers. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers. What I do know is that I can give you the tools and the resources that you need to come up with your own answers. You, as the community leaders, will be in control, not me. I'll be the one standing on the side saying, "Oh, this is the solution. Okay, here's the problem. Okay, here are 3 solutions. Pick one." And I'll give you data on each one that says, here it was used, it worked. Here it was used, it didn't work. Maybe in this setting it will. So you'll at least, again, a strategic plan is the approach that I am proposing versus exactly what you just laid out, sir, which is we're guessing. We're saying, okay, here's a problem, let's try this, or here's a problem, let's try this. And every attempt is costly to the taxpayer. So now before you commit to anything, there's a margin of error there on either side, but whether or not it's going to be a little bit, a lot, or not at all effective. So it just gives you tools to be able to make those decisions. It is it's a big concept right now. I think it's important there are resources, there are tools, and people do this all the time, all over the world. And now you have the same resources. And maybe you decide not to go with me. That's fine too. I live here. I'm still gonna give you a boost. I want my stuff not taken as well. So.
Thanks for that, Mark. Councillor Cornish.
Thank you. I've listened to you tonight. Not as bad as last time. I looked at your proposal. It was very well written. I understood it. what I think you're identifying, I think I'm right, is that we are lacking the experience and the resources and the commitment to do something. Like we're stagnant. The other thing is that I'm picking up from your conversation and basic conversations we've had here for several months is that we do not have a holistic look all captured in one spot. We've got different parts that some of them are interconnecting, some of them are not, and again, we don't have the expertise to manage the situation. So what I'm getting from you is you used a couple of words I'm familiar with, process and procedures. We do not have processes and procedures. The RCMP has their processes and their procedures. Someone else has theirs, but they're not necessarily linkable. What I'm getting from you and your proposal is that I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, that you would focus on the current state. Take a look at the holistic look, gather the data. Second part of it, you would probably analyze that data, turn it into information, because data is piecework. Then we have information. The next part that I would see that you probably, from your perspective of your plan, would be develop a plan of action. And that's where everything falls short right now. There's no action. There's no plan, and you don't have a plan, and you referred to a strategic plan. Well, strategic plan is up here. Plan of action is down here, and there's several steps to get there. So I believe you're on the right path, and I believe that you would probably develop a plan of action with measurables, so we know exactly where we're coming from, and where we're going, and how are we doing. And then that is something that we can discuss with some individual, company, whatever it is, until we get our act together. Because right now, I believe we're disassembled. Don't know if that's a good word or not, but the bottom line is that we need manageable processes and procedures, and it has to be shared and measured, and let's get at it. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. You know, small bites of this are much easier to digest. When you look at the big picture, you know, part of what I am proposing is to create processes for you, but also create, they're actionable items. And, you know, to talk about cost, the strategic approach is the cost minimizing approach, because we're creating feedback loops where you have the ability to say, okay, I have these three options on the table, let's try this one. And then almost immediately you have someone like me who's gathering feedback on success. You know, is it working? I translate all those data points into something that you can understand, and then you make a decision in real time and affect change. Okay, that's not working. Let's try option B. So we do option B. That is working. So let's apply option B here, here, and here. So it is very dynamic. And these situations tend to be dynamic. I heard someone down here use the word tactical. These are not just, you know, the holistic view is needed. You know, it's not just about putting a Band-Aid on it. We need to fix the problem. But we can't fix the problem by ourselves at this level. What we need to create is data points, an argument, evidence to push uphill, whether it's to the RSC or to the province or to the federal government, to say, you know, this is what's going on, this is what we've done about it, this is, you know, a gap analysis will do that. And it will create an actionable task list, which is a tactical strategy to deal with each issue individually while still working towards fixing the whole. If you were, you know, if for EMS people, when they arrive on scene, they do a scene survey. You know, they gather information about what's going on, and then they start, you know, assessing the patient. What's the most, you know, traumatic injury that needs attention right now? And that same process is exactly what I'm talking about, and it just gives you a picture in real time of what's going on in the community. And you'll have an entire list of solutions that you can try to employ. And again, I'm not just making them up. They're all benchmarked and proven to either be successful or partly successful or not at all successful, but you'll still have all the information. You make your own decisions. So every issue will have, you'll become subject matter experts on your own program, and that really is the end goal. You manage your own program. But until you get there, I manage your program. But I'm just your resource. That's it. I don't make decisions. I present solutions, you ask questions, and then you make decisions. I make the phone calls that need to be made to the resources that need to be made. And essentially that sums it up.
Councilor Cornish?
Just another, you mentioned cost.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously there is a cost to any
Yes,
type
yes,
of any type of proposal. The thing that is, in my mind, there are tangible costs, there are intangible costs. Tangible are measurable. We know what it costs for our CMP. We know what it would cost for your proposal. We may know what it's going to cost to put cameras up around the town. But the intangible measurement in this thing is, how do you measure people's scaredness? That's not a word, I know.
Questionnaire is number one to start before you go any further. We gather data all the time like that.
But right now, we don't know what that environment's like. We know people are scared.
Sir.
And the other thing is that I've heard it on the street already. This is going to affect tourism. What's the cost? What are we losing? The other thing is, I've talked to several people. They're not jogging anymore in the past. They're not going out at night. They're not allowing the kids to go out at night, etc. Intangible. And just another one, and I'll keep quiet again, but I don't know how many tens or hundreds of homes right now are paying anywhere from $49 to $4,900 for security systems. Intangible to us, but it's a cost. So that's all I'm going to say. I believe that.
Well, and just on that cost, you know, we either affect change now and mitigate the risk, try to stem the flow, or solve them all together. You know, the cost is going to go up for all of us in the end anyway. You know, if we have a rising, if the crime continues the way it does, and I use crime in air quotes because it's mental health, public health, vandalism, major crime, car thefts, catalytic converters, whatever you want to say, break-ins, camps, cottages, houses, windows, insurance rates go up. And not only do insurance rates go up, but people don't want to live here anymore. Not only they don't want to live here anymore, then other people don't want to move here anymore. And so, you know, it doesn't matter what a great community we know we used to have if we don't maintain it and make it better and then advertise that it's better. You know, I promise you, if you have well, I don't have to promise you anything. You recognize that if you have a good, secure and safe area for your residents have an average happiness with just day-to-day grumbles instead of, you know, at Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts in Calais, as Wade said earlier, it was always weather. You'd go in and that's all it's just weather. Oh, hi-fi lions and you know, that whole crowd, that's all, they love to talk about weather. They don't talk about weather anymore. They talk about crime. Who got vandalized? Who got broken into? Yeah, it's there.
Councilor Rodas?
I might be giving you a hard time here, but I am just going to say, from my perspective, I need like clear-cut factual information in terms of when a proposal is given. I need to know this is the community that this worked in. They had a similar demographic and size to you, the similar issues with crime. This is how many people were on the ground physically. This is how many cameras were involved. Like, that's so much more helpful for me. And my only concern about this consulting process and gathering the data is we really don't have time for that. Like, we really need to get on something. So I'm thinking about encampments. Like, we need somebody there, not only to make the residents feel secure, but also for those individuals struggling to connect them to the appropriate resources, because the RCMP doesn't have time for that. And I'm just looking at more immediate solutions rather than, I fear that we're going to get caught in consulting mode all summer, and then it will be fall, and then it will be cold, and we will be in a very similar situation. So I'm wondering if there's any opportunity to where we could collaborate more publicly. That's just my feelings, because I think if we are consulting you in private, it's not necessarily going to land with the public the way it needs to be, because they really they want to be a part of this conversation, and I think we do owe them that piece as well.
I added a bit in there about how the community can be involved in this in the handout that you've got in front of you. The other thing is, I do have all that data. I'm just not going to present it here at council. And, you know, a lot of it is my proprietary data that I'm not going to share with anybody. I make my living doing this. So the only thing I would caution with the physical security program is you'd best know what your legal authorities are and what you need to operate under and what the company that you contract with needs to operate under. Because if you hire somebody that just, you know, we all know them, they're just going to go down and start dragging people out, guess who owns the liability? You do. So I would caution, at least take a, you at least need to take a look at what that, you know, I built the security training program for where I used to work. Very comprehensive, very in-depth. I know what the legal authorities are. And it's pretty gray. So when you say stuck in consulting mode, I'm not saying that I want to spend 2 months figuring out whether or not you want a supplemental security force. If you want one, I'll identify what the legal authorities are. You'll say that, okay, I recognize what they are. We'll talk to the RCMP to make sure they'll support. Then we'll find you a security force. I will vet them for you to make sure they're licensed and they have high standards of conduct and they have a training program and they're credentialed, and you know, those are checks and balances that responsibly you need to have in front of you before you put the Band-Aid on. I'm not saying that that's a bad idea at all. I think it's a good idea. And I think in conjunction with a number of other solutions, it is the idea. So, yeah, you're not giving me a hard time by saying that. You're proving my point that you don't have time to sit on this, but analysis for analysis' sake is ridiculous. But analysis in this case, when you're dealing with such a large-scale, widespread issue that's affecting not just here. If it was just here, we could say, well, we know where the problem is, let's go fix it. But it's all across the country. So why would we throw away all that data to come up with our own approach when there's already approaches that have been taken in other places that we can say, this worked, let's try this, or this didn't work. That's all I'm arguing. I don't mind sharing everything with the public. In fact, a lot of my program directly involves the public. You need 100% buy-in. They need to know that when they're bringing issues to council, that they're being addressed, and they need to be satisfied with the solutions. And part of that is making sure the RCMP agree to support, because if they don't, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to end up with a security guard laid out in somebody's property, and then a mental health person beside him still doing what they were doing. And the homeowner that called is going to be like, well, now I got 2 people on my lawn, and I still can't let my kids out. So I'm not saying, look, I'm happy to field absolutely every recommendation and question you have and have heard. Again, the only thing I'm offering is experience to say, this is how we turn that idea into something actionable.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Ed.
Yes, sir.
So I understand your company is just under a year old?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And before you were working at LaPro?
Yes.
How many employees do you have?
It's just me. I'm a consultant.
Okay,
So,
hold on. Did you get a direct question, or?
Yeah, my company's leading up to that. So if you put cameras in and the RCMP, and you give the evidence to the RCMP, what happens next?
Well,
If
it's
they don't act, or it goes up to St. John to court, and they don't act, you got the problem still in town.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, number one.
Okay, so I'm going to stop this. Because,
Go ahead.
This isn't where we're at this point, like you alluded to all evening. We're only building something first and being guided to, what we have and what we should do. We don't know that yet till we figure it out. So anyway, thank you, Mark, for your presentation. Is there any more questions from council? Okay, thank you.
I apologize to everyone who had to stand behind me during that.
Okay, next up, can I have mover and seconder for that the report of the Chief Administrative Officer be acknowledged and received? Mover and seconder, please. And so, Councilor Harding, Councilor Greenlaw. Jeff, anything you want to speak of your report?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report was there in your package for your consideration. Minor update on the collective bargaining item that was there. Dates have now been found and agreed to for the next round of bargaining, which will take place in the early part of July. So that process will continue at that time. And I wanted to note, as my report points out, the three documents that are accompanying my main cover report, which are the three work plans, one being strategic plan that you guys saw, would have seen at the committee, and then the two supplemental ones that I've constructed for the bylaw and policy review program, which is admittedly the bylaw one already needs to be, timelines need to be adjusted because there was a lot to digest on this meeting, so not everything that was marked as May came here to save you about another 100 and some odd pages of reading. So it'll be a bit of an ebb and flow based on what the agendas look like. I'll try and look after your personal time as for having to read all these things in preparation of meetings. And then the last thing was just I wanted to remind council that I will be out of the office to attend my annual conference next week. The deputy CAO will be running the show here, and will know how to get in touch with me if he needs me. We're not completely off the radar, but be focusing on some professional development, and probably even more importantly at that particular function is the networking that goes on for CAOs and senior directors from across the country as we share our issues and problems, such as homelessness and community security and everything else that we're all struggling with. I already have an appointment set up with one of the CAOs from Nanaimo, British Columbia, who has actually just started a community safety program supplemental to the police force. He and I, we've known each other for a long time, and we're going to sit down and have a beverage and talk about the tactics and the successes and failures of his program already. Which is still somewhat in its infancy. So with that, as my report indicates, if there's something that council sees in the work plans that you'd like to see something elevated a little quicker or than I've identified, you're always welcome to contact my office, and I'll take any commentary under consideration as we plan and adjust our work plans as we go. But yeah, and we're gonna, as an accountability tactic, I'm gonna continue to keep this attached to my report and updated, so that we can see how things are coming, and you guys can know what to expect in the month up ahead that you should expect on your next agenda. So, with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take.
Okay, any questions of council? All right. Seeing none, can I? No questions. All those in favor of accepting the report of the Chief Administrative Officer? Aye. Councilor Eastman, Councilor Greenlaw, or shoot, what am I doing? I heard all the ayes. Any opposed? Holy jumping! Sorry. All right, motion approved. Thank you. All right, can I have a mover and seconder to move into the departmental reports, please? So moved. Councilor Heislop? Second. Councilor Cornish? Oh, yes, right in the bottom of that, right under you. Yeah, okay. Is there any public comments of any items on the agenda this evening or that we have spoke of?
Your security service person.
Just 1 second. Can you state your name and?
In St. Stephen.
Okay, thank you.
He's obviously in it for making a profit, and the town already has a security service. It's called the RCMP. Probably, I suspect, a lot of the vandalism problems are caused by the homeless people. So, if the homeless people had a place to live, they wouldn't be out wandering the streets, causing vandalism, crime, whatnot. I've never been homeless, but I took the kids camping in July one year. It was so cold I couldn't sleep. And that was only like 14 degrees. It gets down to 3 degrees here. When did we put them out? We put them out in April. It was freezing. So what are they going to do? They're going to be out wandering the streets, causing crime. So if they had a place to stay where they could sleep and watch TV, they wouldn't be out causing crime. I had another thought, but okay.
No, thanks, good comments, and we've all had those same exact concerns, so. Oh,
In order for that security system to work, you have to have thousands of cameras or thousands of people to outwatch the people. Because St. Stephen now includes the outlying areas. It's a large area. You wouldn't be talking about 1 or 2 people. And after they do make a sighting, who are they going to call? Well, they're going to call the RCMP, which we're already paying for. He also said that the RCMP apprehends somebody, spend 3 or 4 hours in the hospital. The doctor says, oh, it's a mental health issue. And so we let them back out on the street. Well, the same thing is going to happen with the security service. So in my view, we'd be paying for nothing. We wouldn't get any farther ahead. What we need is a solution to the homeless people. Now, I realize it's a small town, we can't do it ourselves. You need the province and the federal government to get online with it too. And every place in Canada has got the same problem, so let's all get together and provide some reasonable accommodation. Once they get in, many of them are homeless because the cost of living has gone up dramatically over the last year or so. Rents have gone up, cost of food's gone up. So they're out on the street because they can't afford it now. The landlord's jacked up the rent. And it's almost impossible to get back into the workforce when you don't have a place to stay. They're out in a tent, so they don't have a place to do laundry, they don't have a place to keep their clothes, they don't have a place to prepare a resume. They're stuck in it now. They need a place to stay.
very good points. Thank you. Okay. All right, thank you so much. So, mover seconder for the departmental reports again, please. Councilor Eastman, Councilor Heislip. All right, Deputy CAO, the floor is yours, sir.
Push the button this time. Thank you, Your Worship. We'll start with Public Works tonight. You guys have my Public Works report before you. I've got a couple of comments, but I'll take questions first before I talk about anything I got, if there's any questions. Nope. Okay. I mentioned in there temporary rental blowers for the wastewater treatment lagoon. We have been successful in getting that up and operational, and I can report that it has improved our oxygen levels within the lagoon, which was the desired effect we were looking for. Not 100%. We didn't expect it would be 100%, but we have got some improvement. We're going to monitor that as the summer goes along, and if we have to add more, we will. Hopefully we won't. I also mentioned we had 2 job postings for 2 Public Works employees. That posting is closed. Those postings, I should say, have closed, and we're going to begin interviews next week. Spring yard debris pickup began yesterday and is ongoing. Normally, they would have got that done in one day, but they had some issues with one of the trucks, so they're catching up. But that should be done, if not today, and then before the end of the week. And Budd Avenue lift station, that's undergoing some unplanned repairs as a result of a broken line. We have to basically disassemble that structure to repair the line. We have a temporary Band-Aid in place, but we're waiting some parts. We've got it apart. We're going to replace some stuff that's old and aged, and we've got it apart. So we're waiting on those parts. That's what I have for comments on Public Works. Before I move on, do you have any questions now? All right, no? Okay, Protective Services, 27 calls for the fire department. We did have a couple of structure fires in there, one on Pleasant and one on Hayman Avenue. Hazmat incident, some of you may be wondering what that was. We had an oxygen leak at the Charlotte County Hospital on their outside storage tank. It was over very quick. The tank leaked, and you get a big cloud of oxygen, it goes away. It's all over. No injuries, no damage as a result. I will say that we had a fire on the weekend on Milltown Boulevard, so there will be an unbudgeted recoverable expense related to the emergency demolition and cleanup that we undertook today at that location. The province will cover the costs of that, as they do with all of our situations such as that. Unit 201, which is one of our number 3 engine, had to go away for pump repairs unexpectedly, had to send it away to LeBlanc's in Notre Dame. It's been away for about a week and a half. We're going to pick that up tomorrow. So that was unexpected, but we had to deal with it. That's basically the highlights that I had to speak of on my Protective Services report, unless there's any questions on that.
Yeah, Councilor Rodas?
I know the community is hurting right now, so I just want to thank you, Sean, for your response and for, all the firefighters and emergency responders who responded to Milltown Boulevard. And I think it kind of sheds light to the outcomes of some of the struggles that we're facing as a community, but I do want to acknowledge all your hard work, and please share that with your team as well, that we understand how dedicated you are to our community, and we thank you for your service.
Okay, floor is yours still. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Councilor Harding, sorry.
Well, there was another fire about a month ago, and that hasn't been cleaned up yet. And don't think I'm on. That hasn't been cleaned up on Pleasant Street. I was wondering if that's going to be, because that is an eyesore.
Yes, that's a slightly different situation. There is a process to get that cleaned up, but the difference would be is that one is down. It is a mess, absolutely, but there's very little risk of people going in and getting injured or harmed by going into it. So that's a lower priority. We have a file. It will take a little longer, unfortunately, to get cleaned up. The one on Milltown Boulevard was still up, but not secure. So there's a risk of people going in, and that's why we had to take it down. That's the difference.
But it will be looked after.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Okay, Sean, You've done all your reporting? Okay. Oh. You sure can. Councilor Cornish?
Thank you. Sean, this is not anything to do with anything here now except the fire. There's one thing I've noticed since I moved back here, that other areas, the volunteers have their own cars, trucks and all that, but they have a set of lights on it other than the blinking lights that you're not supposed to use anyway unless you're parked beside the road. What's the chances of having some sort of lights put on the volunteers' vehicles so that they'll be a little bit more safely driving to get to a site?
Short answer, 0. It's against the law. They can't have lights. There are some firefighters in some communities that have chosen to put amber lights in their vehicle, and if they choose to use them and the RCMP want to charge them, they can and will. It is against the law for volunteer firefighters to run emergency lights in their personal vehicles. We've fought for this for years, and well, some have fought for it. I'm not in favor of it personally.
Thank you.
Councilor Heislip?
I was just thinking about when I seen the pictures come up on Facebook of the fires, and were any of those properties on the unsightly premises? And we should be starting to look a little bit more closely at those ones, because there is a couple other ones that have been closed up because people have been living in them, and maybe they should get on some kind of list or watch list or something, because it's just going to happen, right? It's just, I know it's hard, and I know I've seen the look on your face, and I wish I had some easy solution, but
I'll say this: we take one down, and they find another, and that's what's happened in this particular situation. We have watched it; it has been secure up until it wasn't, and as far as I know, that happened this weekend. So I can't really talk about which properties are on which lists, but that's what happens. We take one down, they go and find another, and that's what's happened in this case, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. So next up, we get the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission Municipal District Planning Report. And that would be you, Vicki.
Thank you, Your Worship, and hello again, Council. I'm here to present the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission Municipal District Planning Report on behalf of Alex Henderson, the Planning Director. To begin with, planning issues, we are working on a new subdivision bylaw. Council probably has heard of this multiple times in our report. It's still a work in progress, and we will present the draft copy, the draft result when it's ready. And we are dealing with this rezoning file, which you just heard me presenting, for 8 and 14 Union Street, and we are also recommending a set of terms and conditions for the rezoning as well, and that can be dealt with by council at the second or third reading later tonight. We are also working on a subdivision application to extend Progress Drive and create a new lot in the industrial park, and this is being reviewed by PRAC as the procedure is required, and PRAC will give recommendations to council prior to council's final approval of this proposal. And for development, we have processed 33 building permit applications, and we have reviewed for zoning compliance to date in 2023. We have issued 11 development permit applications, and that is also to date in 2023. The total new construction value recorded in the municipal boundary to date is around $2.5 million, which is pretty good. We have also issued 9 zoning confirmation letters or registry document to date in 2023. We've issued 1 sign permit, and we have approved 6 subdivision applications to date within the municipal district of St. Stephen. And interdepartmental issues-wise, we are drafting a building bylaw, and it's under the review of protective services, and it will be presented to council once it's completed. We are working on a draft for a dangerous and unsightly premises bylaw. Councilor Heislip and Sean just mentioned that. So that will give council more of a procedure and a system to handle dangerous and unsightly structures within the municipality. And then we met with Future St. Stephen and developers to review a potential development in a pre-planning stages. It's not settled yet, so we can't really reveal any details about that. Yeah, so that's the end of my report. Let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions, council? Okay. Thanks so much, Vivian. My apologies. Okay. Next up is community service report, facility maintenance. Kev, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll start off with Jeremy's report. He has been busy as we all encountered the 24-hour power outage in early May. We almost lost the ice surface, even though it was due to be covered. We had the trade show going on, but it was very close. It was probably within 2 or 3 hours of going. When we did take the floor back up, it wasn't in the healthiest it will ever be, but it's coming out again for grad in 2 weeks. So once it's put back down, we'll be back to what it was. But it kind of highlights just the fact that, you know, we don't quite have the backup power which we would love to have. It would be great if we had that for a emergency measures situation. So yeah, I won't say any more about that. So yeah, as for the rest of the facilities, in Jeremy's report speaks for itself. If anyone has any questions on that, let me know, or I can keep moving on to my section. Just some updates on the projects. As we had the special council meeting on May 10th, we have been able to finalize details on the pool deck, so we're in touch with that. The contracts are being drawn up, so that's very encouraging. As soon as we get the timelines, we'll share that with you. The next project is the downtown plaza, which is the area in between the Five Kings and the library. That work should be starting in the next week of removing the old concrete, which is pretty beaten up right now. Some of the items will be removed or relocated, as you can see in the report, but it's very encouraging. We should get that done, and we should be out of commission for till mid-June, second half of June it should be done. Access to the library will still be available under the canopy, and same with the Five King restaurants on the riverside, so shouldn't be any change of service there. Sean mentioned the spring cleanup, the dog park project, it's still moving along. Hopefully we'll have some news next opportunity we meet. The link in the report there is a deck of PowerPoint presentations from age-friendly active communities. That was they reached out to us through yourself, Your Worship, and there's some valuable information there. If we are able to get to that point of creating a committee a little bit down the road. Other than that, busy week with the market getting going in May. The mowing has started. Everything is growing wildly, and we're a little short until the high school is out, and then we can get some summer students in. But you know, it's going to look as good as ever. We've got, you know, good faith in Jennifer and her crew. Other than that, and regarding my report, nothing further unless there's any questions. And then just with Michelle and Aaron's. Aaron had a busy weekend. He had 16 candidates in the pool for a National Lifeguard course. They weren't sadly all for us. There was some from around the province and actually, you know, some from Ontario as well that came in. It kind of shows the draw that we have here, and 7 of those should be potential lifeguards, and I'm going to bug Jeff with some more recommendations for lifeguards in the next few days. But yeah, busy time, which is good. And like I said, when we get a timeline for the pool deck, I'll share that with you. And then in Michelle's report, busy as always with the summer coming up, the huge events that we have, the festivals, the summer concert series, the stat holidays. You know, we're working with the high school and grad, so there's lots of dates there for you to peruse, and if there's any questions, please let me know.
Okay, any questions on that report or reports? Oh, Councilor Rodas.
My only question is, since our last meeting, I have had a lot of questions by the public, just feeling like they didn't have a ton of clarity on like the pool deck. And I think that's fair. I mean, it's a huge project. So my question would be probably for you and Jeff both. If the public has questions, what would be the best way to ask those? And will there be an opportunity too in the future to even have a bit of a presentation for the public on exactly what they're doing kind of in layman's terms so we can have a better understanding? I know we read the report and we understand the report, but just so people have the opportunity to ask questions about the structural issues and some of the things that came up.
Are there any questions concerning directed to myself? In regards to layman's terms, that's kind of where I do my best speaking. So, the condition of the tiles, it's more of the tiles and the structure underneath that, just keeping the water out. That was compromised. I think we have added different items onto the pool deck in the 9 years that we've been open. You know, we've added the diving blocks, the different markers for the flags, some of the original. We've got core samples which were put up just to help with drainage and getting some of the water. If we need hoses down, we can do that. They go under the pool. That probably shouldn't have been done or should have been done initially. And with that, and the high traffic areas, once water gets into one spot, especially around by the sauna where it's the temperatures vary. You've got lots of people walking through. You've got windows there, so you've got hot and cold always. It's just water is just going to find a way into the weakest spot, and I think that's the easiest way to say it. We've got reports we could probably share, and if anybody does have questions, they can let me know, and these were testing by the company that the engineers, the project managers that have that. So I don't think there's a reason why we can't show that. It's nothing too scary. I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we'll move right along. Thanks, Kev. Tim Tozier, please, the Treasurer's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. As usual, first part of the report is the monthly accounting procedures, dealing with receivables, payable, payroll, and general ledger. I think, as I said in the past, basically everything in the town flows through my department at some point, in some form on it, so we're quite busy. As far as projects that are happening, under that section, some of the projects that have been taking us a lot of time there's 4 capital projects that we're dealing with, and some of these capital projects we've been dealing with for months as far as getting the financing and this sort of thing set up. The outdoor plaza project, as Kev said, we're starting soon. That project's around $635,000 with different funding sources. The 2 large capital projects, the Union Street capital project and the School Street capital project, one is $1.76 million, and the other one is $1.7 million. And you'll see a couple of resolutions coming through tonight as far as recommendations for awarding the contracts on that. So, like I say, those 2 particular projects we've been working on for about 5 months now, and we still haven't got a shovel on the ground. So hopefully, pretty soon we'll be dealing with that. And the last capital project I want to mention again is the pool deck project, which has been it was a bit of a challenge too as far as the financing on that, and that's being financed through the gas tax. And council awarded the contract on that last month. As far as other projects, we've been busy also tracking and routing costs related to the wastewater treatment plant fire, which has been taking a lot of staff time. Canada First basketball project, that's been taking a lot of time as well, to be quite honest. We've been dealing with a software transition with the Garland Civic Center that started last year around May, and it's coming along, and it's a lot better than it was, but it's a standalone software that we're incorporating into our regular accounting software. So doing that has been a bit of a challenge to get that through, but that's starting to come along as well. And also, we have been dealing with and are still dealing with a lot of changes related to the amalgamation as well, accounting-wise. Flipping over to the statements, the general operating fund statement. So this statement is till the end of March. You'll see there's a surplus at the end of March of a little over $1 million. Most of the expenses, revenue are in line, around 25%, although, of course, revenues and expenses don't flow in evenly throughout the year with it. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention on it. You'll see under protective services, as the end of March, it shows only 8% expenses in that line. That one actually doesn't contain the RCMP policing charge for the quarter, January to March, which was around $552,000, because that invoice actually came in late. If that invoice is in there, that expense will move up from 8% up to 23% for the protective services, more in line. Environmental health services under there as well, that's at 4%, and within that budget is actually the waste collection charges that we have for the town. And again, we received a couple of invoices late related to garbage collection, both inside town and outside of town. So that came to around $125,000. So when that expense is put in there, that actual percentage moves up to around 23%, which is more in line for what it would be for the quarter. And when you actually incorporate those expenses in there, you'll see that surplus will drop down from around $1 million down to about $349,000 for the 3 months. Flipping over to the utility operating fund, that's showing a surplus of $169,413. And I believe last month, we might have had a deficit or a small surplus, I can't remember which. But of course, at the end of March, we send out our bills because we send our water bills out quarterly. So that flipped it around. So we're showing a surplus actually at the end of March for that particular fund. And the only other part of the report is the check register, and the check register is for the month of April, and it's showing checks paid of a little over $941,000. That's it.
Any questions from council? Okay, thank you, Tim. All right, we've heard all the departmental reports, and we had a mover and a seconder. And, we did not. Future St. Stephen.
I guess the light's not on my mic, so.
Floor is yours, Ian. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. So regarding my report, we continue as Future St. Stephen, the board, continue to have priority discussions. We hope to have that all set by July, and again, we will present that to council just so you have an idea of what we are doing. We did commence, this predates me, but I guess the municipality, the BIA, the chamber, and Future St. Stephen have ongoing meetings just to discuss events, that kind of stuff, and collaborate. So that started up in this last month as well. Future St. Stephen, the municipal district, with Jeff and the RSC, Xander, we all met together with the announcement of the CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund to start discussing potential opportunities. This is still at a very grassroots level of discussing opportunities, that sort of thing. So when it's ready, we will present some recommendations to council. There's always ongoing confidential conversations with developers and different private members of the community, a bunch of different things going in the background that I can't discuss, but we are discussing the housing topic with lots of different organizations. So that is something on our radar. That is going to be one of our priorities as we continually discuss it. And then lastly, around housing, I did discuss with a community member. She had some unique ideas regarding housing and supporting the unsheltered population. Again, I passed her on to the unsheltered population working committee that I believe has a lot more experience and data and some of the things she was looking for. So I made that connection with that community member. Regarding Welcome to St. Stephen, we have kind of hit our threshold of 140 people. We've seen 4 new families move to the community. that we've introduced and paired them with families that are currently already living here to help them with a number of resources. Regarding business growth, labor force development, business support, I've been meeting with a wide variety of different kind of businesses, some obviously established local businesses here, concerns really around retention, recruitment challenges. That's an ongoing discussion. I'm also discussing resources that they can tap into, other, again, partners that they can collaborate with for information and resources. And then, lastly, I continue again to work with the RC on different levels, passing them information, because at a regional level, we're seeing some of or we're identifying some of the same issues throughout Charlotte County and beyond. So we're having that discussion even at a regional level. And then lastly, I tried my last report to, off the top of my head, thank all of the partners from the Spring Job Connection. I wrote them out. I didn't want to miss anyone because there was quite a lot of work in the background. So you can just read through it, but I did want to just publicly acknowledge all the effort that they've all put into. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ian. Any questions from council? Councilor Harding?
Thank you, Worship. I've scoured your report to see if I could find the word hotel, because I know that you can't ask the question unless it's on the agenda. So anyway, since I didn't find it, can you give us any update, because we really, really, really need a hotel here?
I appreciate that. Honestly, no, I can't give you an update because of confidentiality. That's the bottom line. I will say Future St. Stephen recognizes the same need, and that is at discussions within our organization. But as far as specifics, unfortunately, due to confidentiality, I can't give you any sort of update. And I know that's hard to hear, but yeah. That'll always be my response to that question.
Thank you. I'll always ask.
Yeah, that's okay. I appreciate asking the question.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Thanks so much, Ian. Sorry about leaving you out there. All right. So now, I had a mover and seconder to bring in the departmental reports. I need no more questions from council. All those in favor of accepting all the departmental reports? Aye. Any opposed? Reports accepted. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, next up we got bylaws. Need a mover and seconder for bylaw number MDSS 0523-2, second reading, that the bylaw for the MDSS 05-23-2, a bylaw to amend bylaw 05-23, being the council procedure bylaw, be given its second reading.
Second.
I'll take Heislip and Rodas. Is there any questions, Jeff?
Thank you, Your Worship. As previously indicated by Vivian, we have the conditions that apply here. So I just wanted to reiterate on behalf of the MD staff and administration that we support the recommendations of the RC that this bylaws be approved subject to the conditions recommended by the Regional Service Commission. And if that is considered friendly by the mover and seconder, we can adjust the resolution accordingly, and you can proceed.
So any concerns, council? None? None, seeing none, okay. So on that, I will take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, motion carried, and we still had enough anyway, so, okay, we're good. Right, mover and seconder for the bylaw number MDSS 05-23-2, third reading, that the bylaw, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Heislip?
Second.
Councillor Eastman? that the bylaw number MDSS 05-23-2, a bylaw to amend bylaw 05-23, being the council procedure bylaw, be given the third and final reading, as stated just earlier. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Your worship, I jumped the gun, so.
Oh.
Conditions apply.
Later.
I said, as previously said,
My bad.
no,
I was just so keen, I didn't want to miss that.
I'm just glad it wasn't me. Because I'm on number 2, so I don't want to hit number 3.
Second reading, that's what it took me off.
All right. Okay, mover and seconder for bylaw number 09-23 for the first reading. It's a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw L-11, being the building bylaw for the municipal district of St. Stephen, be read by title and the first time. So mover and seconder, please.
So moved.
Councilor Harding?
Second.
Councilor Eastman? So sorry about that, Deputy Mayor. So I got a mover and seconder. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, I'll take another mover and seconder for bylaw number 10-23, first reading, proposed resolution that the bylaw number 10-23, a bylaw respecting the officials of the municipal district of St. Stephen, be given its first reading. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Wheaton, Councilor Rodas. Any questions on that bylaw? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, I'll need another mover and seconder for bylaw number M-2-04, second reading, that the bylaw number M-2-4, a bylaw to amend bylaw number M-2, being municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Stephen, be giving its second reading by title. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Heislip. Councilor Greenlaw. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, I need a mover and seconder for bylaw number M-2-04 for third reading. I'll take a mover and seconder for that. Councilor Greenlaw, Councilor Harding. I got a note here to Vivian, discuss conditions, but we already kind of did that. Yeah.
Just for the record. Confirming that the conditions are being applied?
Yeah.
That's
For the zoning, right?
for the rezoning.
Yeah, for the next one. Yeah.
All right, so for 7.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I had a mover and seconder for bylaw number M-2-4, a bylaw to amend bylaw number M-2, being a municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Stephen, be given the third and final reading by title. Any questions of council on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, so I'll move into this bylaw number, I need mover and seconder for bylaw number Z-3-01 for a second reading.
So moved.
Deputy Mayor Wheaton?
Second.
Councilor Eastman? All right, so yeah, Vivian, you want to, do you need to, no, you already discussed the conditions. Along with the conditions that was discussed earlier by Vivian. Is everyone all good with that? All right, so I had my mover, I had my seconder, that the bylaw number Z-3-01, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-3, being zoning bylaw for the town of St. Stephen, be given a second reading by title. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, mover and seconder for bylaw number Z-3-01 for third reading. Deputy Mayor Wheaton, Councilor Heislip, that the bylaw for number Z-3-01, a bylaw to amend the bylaw number Z-3, being a zoning bylaw for the town of St. Stephen, be giving its third and final reading by title. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Whew. A lot of reading of those bylaws, and numbers and dashes. No, I know, I was just looking at that. Yeah. Hey, this is what we gotta do. All right, new business. Request for decisions. Proposed resolution that council accepts the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer and hereby rescinds the policies identified in this report. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Harding, Councillor Greenlaw. Any comments on that, Jeff?
Thank you, Worship. I did my best to try to summarize 18 policies and the rationale behind my recommendation to rescind them. By cleaning up some of these lower hanging fruit, we'll be able to spend more time on some of the more impactful policies that'll be coming up a couple later in your agenda and over the next few meetings. We were started off with approximately 76 or 78 policies for council to go through. So we're looking at, getting 20% of them out of the way just by cleaning up some old stuff. A lot of it, you probably noted in my notes, realistically is not governance related, it's operational in nature. And specifically some of the stuff around the Garcelon Civic Center. It was a great move by council of the day to get things up and running, to get this facility going. Mr. Sumner and I have discussed the fact that a lot of the stuff in there is good, but it really should be formed part of an operations manual for the staff and how they deal with clientele. So we're transitioning out of the policy and into the operations manual side. So that'll be good there. And as you'll see over the next little while, some of this stuff, I tried to put the date that they were last approved, and some of them are very long in the tooth. Not necessarily the list that I have given you this time, but there are some coming up that do pose, that we have to deal with because they pose some liability to us if we don't deal with them. So if there's any questions on any particular ones, I'll do my best. I don't have them all memorized. But if you're willing to rescind these and get these out of our way, we can start over the next little while doing some meatier ones that are going to take more discussion around the table.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Greenlaw?
Yeah, just a general one. If you're going to rescind the ones in the Garza Civic Center, do you have the operational manual done? Is it ready, or?
What we'll do is we'll use the policies and the current practices, and we'll be taking current practices, putting them on paper, because as you imagine, over the last number of years, our procedures have changed as we've learned more about the facility and added new things. So it's gonna be a hybrid between the current stuff being moved in quickly, and then capturing our current practices in writing for the staff to be consistently applying it across the board.
Okay, Councillor Eastman.
Yes, I got just a question on the mutual aid agreements. What do we have now as a mutual aid agreement? An MOU or something that, say if we have to respond to a fire in Calais, do we have an MOU to say that policy?
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, Sean.
Yes, we would have to update those. We're going to have to update the ones on this side of the border as well, due to local governance reform and names have changed and whatnot. So that's ongoing as well. Needs to be done.
I'm just curious because here it says, on the old one that we're ready to get rid of, it says the agreement must be approved by council on recommendation from the fire committee and police.
We have the agreement. That's not the agreement. That's the policy that says that we will have them, and we do have them. They carry over, and it's worded in there if they don't have to be updated every year, but it is good practice to every so often to get them redone, and that's on the list to be done. Rescinding the policy won't change the agreements, I guess.
Jeff?
Yeah, the reason that I put that one on the rescind list is to have a policy that says the agreement has to be approved by council. By law, all agreements have to be approved by council. So it's kind of a redundant policy, just to acknowledge that we have to follow the law. So that's why it was on the list.
Oh, Councillor Hyslop, sorry.
Jeff, or I guess it would be for Jeff. So this is going to be like a living document then, because there's going to be more rescinding going on. I know there's a hiring policy, the living within the community, and unless you have the more experience in the other one and everything else that was never used. We never used it, and it never seemed to be into play, but there's a lot of policies out there that were there, but.
Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, we're going to see a lot of this over the next, probably the rest of this year, to be honest with you. Some of them are, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 policies, I think, on my chart at my desk that all deal with human resources. So my approach is going to be to update all that stuff into a single human resources policy so that everything's in one place, we can find stuff quicker. Human resources is one that there are some very antiquated things in there, and including a mandatory retirement age, which is illegal. So there's some things that we need to clean up that are just obviously not practiced, but they're in writing. So you're going to see changes that way, where we're going to rescind them as we replace them. There may be more along the way that we discover that we say, yeah, that's an easy, we're going to take that one off. But these were the lowest hanging fruit with really not, I didn't think there was going to be much debate around as far as the need to remove.
Okay. So that's all our questions. All those in favor of the proposed resolution, the council accepts the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer and hereby rescinds the policies identified in this report.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, mover and seconder for the proposed resolution for corporate accountability and transparency policy. Deputy Mayor Wheaton. Seconder, please. Councilor Greenlaw. Anything you want to add to that, Jeff?
Thank you, Your Worship. This policy was a foreign policy of the town of St. Stephen, created shortly after my arrival here. And it's essentially, I call it a parent policy. It sets a lot of the tone of how all the other policies need to be drafted and written, some of the principles that we're going to apply. We like transparency. We like having things in language that we expect the common person to understand. So we're going to do a lot of plain language writing, which is the intent is that we're not hiding behind legalese and bureaucratic talk as much as some of us are comfortable with it. And we want people to understand why we're making the decisions we do, even when we have to say no. And that is a huge one for us. Too many times municipalities, not just here, but I've worked in a lot of places where the old deals, the old handshake agreements from back in the day still existed. Under this policy, those wouldn't happen anymore. Our goal would be to eliminate those, make sure everything, they might still be a good deal. It just means that we have to put paper to it. We need a council resolution to back it up. Whatever it is, it's just to bring it out of the darkness and into the light and say, yes, we're doing this and we should be proud of our decisions. So with that, I'm happy to take any other questions.
Okay, so no more questions. So I need the council adopts the corporate accountability and transparency policy as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, mover and seconder for council staff relationship protocol policy. Councilor Otis. Second. Councilor Heislip. You want to add some details to that? Yeah,
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is the first fully new one that I've been bringing forward to council. It stems largely from some of the conversations we had during our strategic planning session about roles, responsibilities, clarity, and trying to create just again, having all people understand the relationship and how things should flow. I did borrow this from a colleague in another province and adjust it for our purposes, but I think it does capture the nature of the relationship between council and staff, provides clarity around what the expectations of each party should be. And again, it's another one of those, like the accountability and transparency policy, it'll set the tone for everything else that comes after it and how we approach these things. So yeah, if there's any specific questions, happy to take them.
No? Okay, so, on that note, so the council adopts the council staff relationship protocol policy as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Okay, and we move and seconder for street name request. Tate subdivision in Oak Bay. Councilor Greenlaw, Councilor Eastman. Any comments on that, Sean?
Well, I think it's fairly straightforward. We have a developer that came forward, requested a name, and originally I tentatively approved it, but then when I spoke with NB 911, they suggested we not take it due to the similarity of another name in this community. We try to avoid having similar names for obvious reasons when we're sharing first responding agencies, so it eliminates confusion. So I went back to them, and they came to me with this desired name to be Island View Drive. Public Safety reviewed it. We've approved it, and we're just looking for your approval to approve my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the proposed resolution that the recommended street name, Island View Drive, be approved by council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I need a mover and seconder for the Unsheltered Community Ad Hoc Committee. Councilor Greenlaw? Cornish. Councilor Cornish? Any comments on that? Jeff?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Morton and I have been working on this since the committee meeting where we kind of got the task to undertake a review of the municipal-owned properties. And as we started down our path of work, we became quite aware that this is one of those topics where we don't believe it should be 100% staff-led. It is a very political item. While we do bring expertise to the table on several fronts, we would very much appreciate the assistance of some council representation to work with us as we design the criteria and apply the criteria to the report that you requested. So we thought it was best to hold our spot where we were and come in and ask for your assistance moving forward.
So is that just council, or can it be a private citizen?
That would be up to the will of council.
All right, okay, we'll see where this goes. Councilor Harding?
You know exactly where this is going.
That's not number 3. I'm not taking that.
First of all, in order to have a such committee, I agree with CAO Jeff that no, it can't be staff-driven. I think there should be members of the community. There are people who are suffering greatly from the unsheltered population. I think that the first unsheltered was a mistake, and I think that this time we probably should have people from the community who are suffering from these people, who know what's going on, and who want to make a difference. And the people who are on this must have contacts with the provincial government, the federal government. They must have contacts to whatever, because this is a time that we have to have support from all government agencies. We can't do this on our own. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Harding. Councilor Otis.
I agree with Councilor Harding that I do think the community needs to be involved in this conversation. My only concern is it is a political issue on both sides. So as council, if we're deciding where the location is, I mean, we're obviously also biased members of the community. You know, if I live on Union Street and somebody else lives on Hawthorne or Pleasant, we're all going to have our own opinions on this. So that's what gets challenging for me. And the unfortunate thing is, I think if if we were presented with a criteria tonight, we could look at Elm Street right now and see if that currently fits, and then if it did fit the criteria, we could look at how we can support that area in terms of the municipal enforcement or whatever type of security, or how we could support those particular members of community. I'm wondering if, to hear from the rest of council, what we would think about supporting Jeff in bringing together a group of individuals, including perhaps Scott McKenzie from RCMP, somebody from Horizon, somebody from Housing, Future St. Stephen, and not having any political figures in the room. Maybe perhaps even look at financially as council comping the cost of a strategic facilitator to do a strategic planning session with that group where they, in a non-biased way, say, here's what we're presenting to council as next steps for the Unsheltered Committee, and then we could take that and present that up higher to Kathy Baucus and just say, these are the people on the ground, this is a recommendation they're giving us, we support it fully, and we have comped the cost of a strategic plan. And I'm just trying to think of a really direct solution that is not overly political, because it does need to involve community members, people on the ground, and it needs to in some ways not involve predominantly staff or predominantly council. It needs to be a good mix of people who have no other agenda here, because I mean, we are biased naturally. We live in this community and we are in a position of power, so I don't necessarily feel comfortable in deciding where the location should be.
Yeah, but that's what we signed up for. I mean, we are a voice for the community. So, and we do need to assist the staff on this because it is political, and it would create a great team to resolve the situation. And a counselor can get feedback, and throughout the community. And I'm not above requesting that we do have citizens on that board or on that ad hoc. So along with council, and that would kind of be a good mix maybe to vet all the situations. Yeah. Councilor Eastman.
Just an idea. Seeing that the province owns the provincial campground in Oak Bay, maybe they should just open up the doors and let these guys in. So you have them all in one place. The province owns the provincial campground in Oak Bay within our municipality. Yes.
Well, we'll leave that to the ad hoc committee, but yeah. And anyways, yeah, but point taken. Deputy Wheaton?
Okay, well, it doesn't matter who's on the committee. I think there's going to be bias, but it's good to have a committee and have some from every corner to make that decision, right? But I think council should be included and the staff, definitely, but people from the public, right? Yeah, perfect. And we go from there.
All right, so, Councilor Greenlaw.
Yeah, no, I do agree with Councilor Rose a little bit there, as far as councilors being on the committee having a slight bias. We are making the decision because whatever recommendation comes from the ad hoc committee, we're approving here. So really, we are, like you say, that's what we signed up for. Would we muddy the waters if councilors were in the ad hoc committee? Possibly, right? So I think that might not be a bad idea, but that's just my opinion. Oh, okay.
Councilor Hyslop?
Yeah, I do like the idea because we made the decision for the last unsheltered facility. Probably, there was a good mix of people on that committee though. And it came down to council, and all of a sudden there was a big blame on council because we put it there. So I'd like to see more input from the community and And I remember going to a couple of seminars before. It was on a totally different subject, but it was like building things in your community. If it's built by the people in your community, they take pride in it, and they take ownership in the project. And I think that's what we have to. I'm not trying to go and shrug off our responsibilities, because we do have a responsibility, and we're going to make that decision in the end. That's our responsibility, and we have to, if it goes yay or nay, then we have to take responsibility for that. But I think it should be presented from a source outside of politics, and then presented to politics after. So I think it's a good idea. I don't know about the. Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and we have to put some thought into that. I was sitting here thinking about it, and I think a good point.
Councilor Greenlaw?
Yeah, just one more question. Like, who would lead this committee? Like, who's going to chair it, and who's going to be the driver?
Well, yeah, I'm just playing this all out here. I would say, staff is starting it, but the ad hoc committee will build it, and then council approves it. Right? That's really. And then you get into the political part of it. But that's what it is. That's how democracy works. Yeah. So I would say, who's chairing it? We let staff carry the torch, and we'll be there alongside. Well, they were originally. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Two things that have happened during the course of this conversation. One, I think the project had a significant level of scope creep happen. We were tasked with, I'll just remind you, to take a map of the municipal lands, create a criteria, apply it, and that's it. We're not talking about what services need to be provided anywhere yet. We're just saying find a geographical spot based on some basic criteria. The other stuff will come later, absolutely, if we do anything. If, from what I'm hearing, if council would prefer an apolitical, cold-hearted, bureaucratic approach to site identification, then we probably don't need, we can do that as the cold-hearted bureaucrats we are, and you can very easily, we'll create criteria, we'll apply criteria, we'll make a presentation saying, here are the criteria we came up with, here's how we applied it, here's the scores, here's the top four spots, and what their rankings were. If that's where you would like to start, we're fine with that. We just wanted to make sure that we wanted to have the conversation about at what stage do you want the politics to become a player. So if you're saying not yet, set the foundation for us and bring us something just based on expertise, just based on your criteria. We're fine with that. We'll continue the work we started. We got discussing, and I got to the point saying we're going to end up, we all know there's going to be not in my backyard. There's going to be all that kind of stuff playing in. So we can either do that a little bit later in the process, or we can do it early. So if you prefer a little bit later with that bureaucratic response, we can do that and have that for you, probably at by your next council.
I thank you for that, Jeff. That's very clearly, and I appreciate your comment on that. So, literally, bring us what you got. And your mapping, and then you can't make that stuff up. It either is a piece of land or it isn't. So I don't think you need too much ad hoc going on there. So and then we work it in the committee and look at those pieces of land and then do that labeling after. Makes sense. Makes a lot more sense that way. Thank you, Jeff.
Withdraw the resolution if you wish, and we'll just continue as before.
Yeah. Councilor Greenlaw, sorry.
So can you consider, to Councilor Eastman's point, can you consider provincial land? Could you?
If you wish it to be on the list, it will be evaluated probably very differently, because the ability to control what happens on the land would be a criteria, and it would score very low in that criteria, but it could be identified.
There's some low-hanging fruit there. I think we should, scope it a little wider, yeah.
Councilor Harding?
Just very quickly, I don't know who owns it, but the Bunker C plant, it was Irving's at one time. I think that would be a perfect place. It's down past the walking trail, but I don't know who owns it. I don't know whether Irving still do, it was Bunker C Irving. Oh. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're picking out land property here all of a sudden. So I think we should stay on the course. Oh, yeah, Council.
I'll just be clear, from sitting on the unsheltered working group, that property was brought up, other properties, like, I think they've done a significant amount of legwork. It's just, I think right now it's midsummer. I would say that committee has just like put a lot of work in, and then it's dead middle of summer, and they just may need some support in terms of like coming back together in a more focused way with who's available during the summer to commit to talking about this. So I think as far as the unsheltered group, you already have a pool of people. Scott McKenzie comes to those meetings, Heather Chase comes to those meetings. Like, there's already the pool of people there to start. So I think you could take those members plus community members and, you know, having Sean's perspective as a staff member and yours, Jeff, and just come together at the table is what I'm thinking in terms of talks for bigger things. Because my only fear is that if we're talking about encampment sites, like, summer will be over by the time we decide on an encampment site, and then the encampment issue will be over and we'll be into like warming center season. So that's my only concern, is just, you know, like, naturally these things can't always move super quickly. So yeah, just considering time.
Okay, so so just, if council is comfortable, do you take a seconder?
Seconder, I'll second.
Councilor Eastman and Councilor Cornish. So we're good. All right. I guess we didn't vote that in anyway. Okay. All right. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Okay, so I need a mover and seconder for tender summary for Union Street Combined Sewer Separation and Water Main Renewal Phase 2. Councilor Greenlaw and Councilor Heislip. The proposed resolution, the council awards the construction contract for Union Street Combined Sewer and Separation and Water Main Level, or Main Renewal Phase 2 to the low tender Fairville Construction Limited for their tender price of $1,895,000 or $95,775, HST included. All right, any questions of council? Ooh. Oh, and that, in bold print, there's number 3, so you got me. Additional municipal funding required to complete the work as tendered be from both the General Capital Reserve Fund and the Water and Sewer Capital Reserve Fund, with a total cost allocated based on the original funding split cost estimates. All right, I had a mover and seconder. Any questions from council? Okay, yeah, so ahead, Jeff.
There we go. So what you have before you is the results of the tender process. Even the lowest bid came in over our previously anticipated estimates, which means we had a difference to make up. We met with the engineering firm. We got recommendations, which were in your package. And then we met as a senior executive team to discuss what we were going to recommend to council as to the way forward. Obviously, we could have tried to reduce the scope, tried to find different ways to make cost cuttings inside the project to try and get down to our budgeted number. However, as we discussed it, the importance of the complete projects is very high. And when we looked at what it would take if we reduced scope and then had to come back and finish it later and remobilize and retender, it was going to be, in our estimation, more expensive than the overage on this tender. So then we took a look at our reserve funds. Mr. Tozer was good enough to do a whole bunch of math for us and figure out a plan for us to show that we can use the reserve funds to make up the difference. Between this project and the School Street project, it will, to a very large extent, empty the utility reserve, which only had 154,000, if you remember, Tim, something like that. Which, if you think about a utility project, 154,000 doesn't get as much pipe in the ground, unfortunately. So we figured if we were going to have that and use it, this was the time to put it to work. And so you'll see the resolutions are drafted very similar between the two projects because the same thing happened in both projects. But we do believe that the work is such that it should be completed based on the tenders received and financed the overages from our municipal reserves.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Heislip?
So do we base our, our financials on the engineering's estimate? And they seem to be like 50% difference in both these cases, or something, I know it's the price of everything's gone up, but the engineering company should be aware of the same issues and.
Go ahead, Jeff.
You're not incorrect, Councillor. The estimates produced by the engineering firm were 40% higher than the similar projects tendered 2 years ago. We were fairly confident, actually, that would cover the inflationary costs. In some of the discussions around the projects, we know where the profits or the increases are coming from, and the evidence seems to be playing out that it's not coming from the materials. It's the contractors are bidding high because they're in demand, and they can. And we're seeing that all over the province. I know there's roadworks not far from here that council just refused to do because the bids came in so high, it wasn't going to happen. Unfortunately, we're at the mercy of being in a place where, if we had 14, 15 construction companies bidding these things, we might get better pricing. We don't have a lot of bidders. We know it, they know it, and we're kind of beholden to them. So to say that we were not impressed by the numbers as we opened them would be true, and we were surprised. But 15%, I mean, maybe that's not as bad as it could have been. It's not as bad as other municipalities have faced.
Okay. All right. So I already read it, so I'm not doing it again. So there's no more questions. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Just like that. All right, mover and seconder for tender summary School Street combined sewer separation and utility renewal. Councillor Heislip? Second. Councillor Greenlaw? The proposed resolution that council awards the construction contract for School Street combined sewer separation and utility renewal to the low tender LCL Excavation 2006 Inc. for their tender price of $1,853,547, HST included, and that the additional municipal funding required to complete the work was tendered, or as tendered, be from the both General Capital Reserve Fund and the Water and Sewer Capital Reserve Fund, with a total cost allocated based on the original funding split cost estimates. So that's the same as our one we just went through, so there's no point in going through all that again. Any questions or comments from council? All right, here we go. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Just like that. Just a stroke of the pen. So. Yeah. All right, so next up, as council approved earlier, approving the agenda, we got H, Charlotte County Museum. Councillor Heislip, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, Your Worship. Well, we just went and did almost $4 million worth of things. This will be a little bit less. I'd like just to have a consideration of council to consider in-kind contribution to the Charlotte County Museum with respect to property maintenance. We're looking for mowing, just mowing of the property. It's not a big property. We have very limited operational money. I think the province we apply for gives us between $2,000 and $3,000, which to replace a window would cost us that, and we're just trying to keep ahead of it. And so we're just want to request for council for that. In kind would be approximately, we had the mower before, somebody mow it, and it was around $700 to $800, and that's with a profit, right? So it would be probably approximately $500 in in-kind contribution to the museum. And we're not doing, in previous years, we've asked for contributions monetary, but this year we figured we won't ask for that. We'd just like to have an in-kind contribution. It would only take about an hour of somebody's time. So if councillor consider that as a motion for in-kind contribution.
So just for clarity, when you say in-kind, you want, do the mowing, not money, you want mowing. All right. Is our mowers, they're not in contract right now, so it's just a matter of, anyway, you got anything to, sorry, Kev?
Right now, there is a possibility. We are low on staff until, like I said, we get some high school students joining us. I put in for a, going off topic here, mowing supervisor, which would be a unionised position because it's just another adult out there to help guide the students along. Getting off topic. Could we could we do it? I'll have to speak with the guys that do. I can't promise anything. I can get you an answer probably by the end of the week, if that's.
An answer. Can you do it or not, or at all on this?
We've got more spaces now. Obviously, less staff. You know, it's a difficult one just to say yes, we can do it, but we'll certainly be able to let you know by the end of the week.
If they pass a motion to do it, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
The
motion tonight is to go. The motion tonight is to get you to do it. So, okay.
All right, so council may have to take turns going up. All right. Okay, so there's one councillor is requested to do some in-kind mowing at the Charlotte County Museum. Does council support that effort?
We need a resolution, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Mover, seconder.
All right, so let's start. Can I have a mover and seconder to do in-kind mowing at the Charlotte County Museum? Should we put some timelines on this or a cost or?
Your Worship, I put it, yeah, for the 2023 summer, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So mover seconder for the Charlotte County Museum for in-kind mowing for the year of 2023.
So moved. Second.
Councillor Greenlaw, Councillor Harding. Any more questions or comments from council on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next item is the, I need a mover and seconder for the St. Stephen Cemetery request.
We want to know what the request is first.
Yeah, just to get into it.
Do a motion first.
Okay, all right. So Council Harding will speak of that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I got a call late this afternoon from ex-councillor Jimmy Maxwell, and he is in charge of the cemetery. Pardon me, before COVID, he said that the town used to come and help them. He's already got part of the cleanup done, but he needs a front-end loader. Is that what he needs? Would you like me to speak? Yeah, would you do that? And I'd appreciate that.
I spoke with Dave Beach, Public Works foreman. He actually, the first call came to him from Jim Maxwell. And Dave informed me that in the past, they had done this prior to COVID. Dave and maybe some of the other staff volunteered their time to go up in an evening after work hours with the town loader and possibly one of the dump trucks. Load up the brush that they had gathered up, put it on the truck, hauled it away to our dump site, and volunteered their time. So what we need is authorization to use the town equipment to go and do that.
All right, I'm already good with it. How's the rest of council?
I'm good with it, of course.
All right. Someone want to give that motion?
I move that we do exactly what Sean said.
All right, so I'll make a motion. The St. Stephen Cemetery request our assistance of hauling away the gathered materials, and that town staff will take care of removing that gathered materials and taking it to our dump site on their own time. Okay. Okay. All right. So the use of the equipment on their own time. All right. On that, any more questions? Okay, so Councillor Harding, Councillor Eastman, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. That's the last one.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome. Okay. And we should thank Jim for all his hard work there, because he's been doing that for years. And they've had some upset up there too. Like some broke in 2 or 3 times up there. Okay, so next proposed resolution that the following items be received for information. So I just need to a mover and seconder to accept all of these 3 items: the Neighborhood Works, the Chocolate Fest grant. Oh, hold on, we got to discuss some of these. Okay, there's a thank you letter from the Neighborhood Works, Municipal District's Office, Better Together campaign, so I just acknowledge that we received that. The Chocolate Fest grant proposed resolution, we have to do this. Okay, so, did we already do it?
Yeah.
All right, okay, but we didn't do the Sunbury Shores one, though. So I can't accept, okay, anyway, just accept 1 and 2. The next up is, I need a mover and seconder for the, yes, sir? It isn't? Oh, that's what I thought, okay.
That's what the treasurer was just
All right.
looking at me. From the side.
Oh, okay, all right, so this is back up to where I was heading. So Neighborhood Works, we accepted the letter. We're all good? All those in favor of accepting the letter? Say aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carried, thank you. All right, Chocolate Fest grant, mover and seconder for the Chocolate Fest grant request. Councilor Cornish, Councilor Rodas, that the council approve a community grant of $1,500 in-kind support for the Chocolate Fest, Inc. Is there any questions or comments from council? In-kind probably be helping out with the activities and events, isn't it? I would say. Yeah. Anyway, it's $1,500. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? It's yeah, and we did this last year. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, mover and seconder for Sunbury. Is that Shorts or Shores? It's supposed to be Shores. It says Shorts. It's not me this time.
I'm looking at the assistant clerk.
All right, Sunbury Shores donation request. Mover and seconder, please. And then we'll go into discussion. Okay, Councilor Greenlaw?
Second.
Deputy Mayor Wheaton? All right, what we have is the council approve a community grant of the amount of to Sunbury Shores. Do we need to start some discussion on this? I'd like to, or, yeah, Councilor Harding.
Yeah, well, I If it's the same Sunbury Shores that I'm thinking of is in St. Andrews, then they probably should get the money from where they are.
More questions or comments? Councilor Rodas?
I appreciate the request, but I noticed in the letter there's no direct, it's not directed to our council at all. There's no specific request, Town of St. Stephen, or how this donation would impact community members of St. Stephen. So I'm just a little bit confused about that. I think it's good to know for the general public, when you're making a donation request, we'd like to see, you know, how it's going to impact our community, especially if it's coming from outside of the community. So I appreciate Sunbury Shores and everything they do. It's fantastic work. However, I right away noticed there's nothing in there that says Dear Town of St. Stephen Council or anything else. So I'm opposed to it as well.
Mr. Mayor? I agree with Councilor Harding, and I agree with Councilor Lotus that I think this one should be turned down. It's out of our jurisdiction, and a blank amount looks like a blank check we're going to write. So the information was given us is not giving us enough to go ahead with this. So I vote that we move that we remove that from the agenda.
All right. Okay. I'm reading the room quite well. So that we had the mover and seconder. So I'll just read the motion. The council approved the community grant of X amount of dollars to Sunbury Shores. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Yeah.
All right. Motion not granted. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're capped out. Okay, next up, we got the council reports. Everyone has submitted, but I got to take the opportunity under mine to read a proclamation for the longest day of smiles. June 18th, 2023, whereas Operation Smile Canada is a global medical charity providing free, life-changing surgeries and medical care to children born with cleft conditions around the world. And whereas every 3 minutes, a child is born with cleft condition, and lack of access to safe, effective surgery means that easily treatable conditions like cleft lip and cleft palate can become fatal. And whereas Operation Smile Canada believes every child born with a cleft condition deserves exceptional surgical care. And whereas the longest day of smiles will unite Canadians from coast to coast to coast as they raise awareness and funds. And whereas on June 18th, 2023, the citizens of the Municipal District of St. Stephen are encouraged to learn more about how to support this worthy cause by visiting www.longestdayofsmiles.ca. And whereas our community can help celebrate the longest day of smiles by posting a hashtag longest day of smiles on social media. And therefore, I, Al McCachran, Mayor of Municipal District of St. Stephen, do hereby proclaim June 18th, 2023 as longest day of smiles in the Municipal District of St. Stephen and commend its thoughtful observance to all citizens of our municipality. Dated this day, 24th day of May, 2023. Thank you for that time, folks. And here it is. Motion to close. Oh, Councilor Harding, or Councilor Greenlaw. It's always Councilor Harding. All right. A second, Councilor Rodas. All right. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Adjourned.